Roy Wood Jr. is a comedian, actor, producer, a correspondent for The Daily Show, and has a new podcast out on iHeartRadio called Roy's Job Fair. We discuss how he didn't have enough money for gas to get him home from a comedy gig and how an opportunity presented itself that allowed him to continue to pursue his dream. Life as a comedian ain't easy, and Roy joins Peaks and Valleys to talk about it right now.
Say it is the darkest before the dawn. But what do you do before the dawn comes when all you have is candles and night lights guiding your path until morning, until your sight is restored and you can see your way out, your way through, your way to the other side? You push with all your might until the day breaks and your victory comes. This is Peaks and Valleys with TK Trinidad.
So we have the truth teller, comedian, podcaster, correspondent of The Daily Show, father, the man, the myth, the legend, Roy Wood Jr. is in the house. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Very much
So
good.
yeah, I mean we're here and we're still alive, so that's always a good thing. So let's get into it. Let's just talk about a time in your life, and I've been doing some extensive research, so you've done a lot, which is always great. But let's talk about a time in your life where just stuff got real, and you didn't know if you were actually going to come through.
Uh, I haven't told the story often, but the professionally, I'd say the biggest one was the time I ran out of gas. The time I was headed to a gig and the gig canceled, and that gig was supposed to be my gas money to get home.
Mm,
So now I don't have enough. I got like a quarter tank.
hmm.
But to get back to Birmingham, I probably need three quarters. So in those days, at those cash prices, I probably need like, I don't know, man, about $15, you know? Like not a lot of money. Like, and I
Right.
maybe had like $4. I had enough, like in those days, I guess even still now, you could eat at the comedy club, you know? And
Hmm.
so I really feel like that was like how I got by most nights, which is eating food at the club. The trick I figured out, the way to get two meals was to show up extra early
Right.
for first show. You know, like if first show's at 8, you show up to the club at 7. And you're so ridiculously early that they're not really thinking about ringing up stuff and, whatever.
Right.
And then you get another meal on the way out the door, and that counts as your official comedian meal that you're
You got to work
entitled
the
to or
system.
whatever. Yeah.
How old were you when this happened?
Early 20s,
Okay.
so 22, 23. um I'm working the road and that's how I'm paying the bills. And then there was huh like I'm working the road, I'm paying the bills, right? And then I start looking at working in radio. So now
Hmm.
I'm interning, but I'm not getting paid for real. So the road is how I'm paying my bills, but just barely,
Right.
like literally barely. And so at this point, it's like, I don't know, it's probably like 7 o'clock at night, and I pull into a truck stop and I went to sleep. And so the next day, like early in the morning, like sleeping in the car was my thing. Like that's what I
Hmm.
always was into. Um, and I woke up at 3 in the morning. It's fucking freezing. It's freezing. So I let the engine run long enough for the car to get warm, so it's warm enough for me to fall back asleep. And then, an hour later, you'd wake up to frost-covered windows, shaking cold, and that's wash, rinse, repeat. Like that's how I slept through the night in like 90-minute intervals until it got unbearably cold, and then I would warm the car up enough for me to be able to go back to sleep.
Hmm.
So I wake up in the morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's like construction looking ass dudes going in the truck stop or whatever.
Hmm.
And I didn't think nothing of it. And I go in and I'm dressed pretty much like I am now, like just like a sweatshirt and a hat. Like I'm I had no stage persona or presence at that time. So so I go into the truck stop, and one of the guys in the truck stop, he goes, "You wearing the wrong shoes." I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, if you trying to work at the construction site today, you got to have boots." And with what little money I had left, and this brother, giving me a couple dollars, I got a pair of construction boots. Come to find out, they were working at a construction site for a temp service place. So I followed them over to the temp service place, um, and signed up for some day labor. And I worked day labor that day to make enough to get home. Turns out also, if you drive people to the construction site when you work
Mhm.
for a day labor place, they give you a $5 bump per person in your vehicle. May not have been five, might have been $3, something like that. But my point is that was enough to cover the money that I owed the dude for the boots. So I still got my full check. But you just have to sometimes sit still, and the universe will show you. It'll show you the way. But you
So
got to
with
sit
that, like
still.
at that point, because I mean, people, I mean, anything that you really are about and passionate about, it's going to be hard if you truly want it. So at that point, were you just like I should be doing something else, or like what? Because I'm sure there's so many other stories where stuff happened before you are where you are right now. So what kind of was there self talk, or what did you tell yourself to continue moving on?
I thought this was my last day. The plan was to go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and suck it up, and tell my mom I'm quitting, and can she send me some money so I can come home? Because at this point,
Wow.
you've exhausted every person you can call. Like you've done all that shit. And I got too much pride for that to keep asking.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid to ask, but that like there wasn't like I wish I could tell you some. I looked up in the sky and I said, "Lord Jesus, it just." I didn't do none of that. I said, "All right, this is it. But what's the way? There has to be a way. No, this is it. All right, let's sleep. All right, wake back up. Oh shit, still cold, still broke. Fuck." And like legit like doing like space shuttle calculations where okay, on a quarter tank, if I need three-quarters of a tank, what's the fuel efficiency if I add two more gallons, and then I'm at almost half a tank? If I'm at three-eighths of a tank at 51 miles an hour instead of the traditional 75, how much further could I go on if a train leaves Phoenix like that? Like I was starting to run those equations in my head, but you look up and there it is. There's an opportunity. I've always said everything that I am career wise is rooted in the fact that strangers or people who didn't need who I couldn't do anything for did something
Right.
for me. Yeah.
So when that happened and other incidents like that did happen, was that just you figuring, okay, the universe is telling me to this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Like it's like, oh, okay. Well, not in that moment. It didn't tell me that in that moment or that day. It that weekend became the new barometer for job stress. And so if whatever I'm going through, if it's not as dire as that night in Kentucky,
Mm,
then I'll be fine. That moment, that instance informed how I handled future stressful situations.
okay.
Like I don't think there's a point in my life that I've ever felt more what am I doing? Why? What? I should just go and just I like I should go back to Golden Corral. No disrespect to anyone in food service,
Right. It's
but
yeah,
it,
it's
it wasn't for me. But that was like the thought. Because Miss Darlene told me, she said, whenever you want me to put you back on the schedule, baby, you just let me know.
and so now
And that never left my head.
you get to that point because you've worked, some crazy jobs and you're doing this, and I've heard on other shows that you're a child of educators, and how do you know do the comedy thing, and they're looking at you kind of like, you could be having a job and you don't have to be struggling.
Hmm.
Like, well, how do you fight that? Because I have that same thing too, where my parents are just like, just working. Like, my mom works for the government, just working 9 to 5, and like there's no struggle. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, what's your self talk with that?
I think our parents are from a different generation where the goals for them were a lot of things that they were denied. So just having the access to those things, I think that's why they have a value or a higher value, and that there's stability in them. It's
Hmm.
not that my parents have ever been wrong. Yeah, it would be easier to have just gone and get this, that, and the third job, but I don't think I would have ever been happy. My mom was content with me graduating college. That was the deal we made. Was,
Okay.
hey, if you get the degree, because I started doing stand up while I was in college, and I asked her, she didn't like it, she didn't approve of it, but I said, if I make good grades, will you shut the fuck up? I didn't say it like that, but that was the basic deal. Was, if you're making good grades, I don't. She said, if you're making good grades, I don't care what you do. So I was
Fair
like,
deal.
I bet. And
So
so the grades were solid. Up until that point, my grades was wild. So I was, it's like she had nothing to lose. Like, I was making a wild bet. Like, like I'm walking into this conversation with a 2.5 GPA, and I'm like, bet you I make the dean's list. She's like, she was like, I'll take that bet. Listen, I shut her ass up too.
well, congratulations on that. So, like, with everything that you have going on now today, so you're on the Daily Show, you have your specials and stuff like that. Do you go back to like you were talking about, like when stuff gets hard in entertainment life, like stuff doesn't necessarily go right in that particular time? Do you take yourself back to that moment in Kentucky sometimes, like even in,
There
in
isn't a
present day?
moment in my career. There isn't a moment in my career that can happen that will be as bad as Kentucky. Period. Nothing will be as dire as that night. So I walk into any and everything as if I'm playing with house money, with, an extreme lack of fear of, not necessarily a fear of failure. I'm okay with failing. That's part of the game. That's what we
Hmm.
signed up for. So I'm more at peace with that. I think that, and also reality television, losing repeatedly on national television, on comedy shows, also helped to inform this rejection and failure. It's all temporary. It's all
Hmm.
perseverance and how you bounce back from it. That's ultimately what your story is.
So let's get into your podcast. I've like I said, I did some more research on you. You had quite a few jobs. So let's talk about your podcast, Roy's Job Fair. What is the worst? Because you had a lot of jobs. So as far as your top 10 or your number one job, where it's just like, this job was effing terrible and I wish it on nobody. What job was that?
There is a Quick Creek factory in Columbia, South Carolina. I wouldn't wish that on a single soul motherfucker. Period. Period. So it's in an aluminum shed. It's outdoors, but it's just like the shed overhang or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's 95 degrees. And so at this factory, they make quickcrete. And there's a big, it's like a rock quarry. Like the whole thing is a rock quarry. But the part where the quickcrete is kind of put together, it's like just this little shed near the front. And so the rocks go into a grinder and they get mixed with all the whatever the fuck the herbs and spices are to make however you make instant concrete. It comes through the machine. And
Okay.
so there's a guy, he's a bagger, and the bagger sits, it's like a 15, it's like a seat on a big ass platform, and there's a nozzle at the edge of the seat. And he pulls a paper bag, he puts the bag on the nozzle, pulls a lever, the bag fills with quickcrete to the top, pulls the bag off the lever, tosses the bag on a conveyor belt that comes down to me.
Mm-hmm.
My only function in life for 8 hours and a 30-minute lunch is to take this 10-pound bag of quickcrete
Oh God.
off of the conveyor belt and lay it onto a forklift pallet. And you stagger the stacks on the forklift pallet. I think we maybe went eight high, and then a rapper comes. This motherfucker's got the easy job. This rapper comes with the cellophane and does like 8, 9 laps around it. And then a forklift dude pulls up, takes the pallet, puts it on the back of an 18 wheeler, lays down a new pallet, wash, rinse, repeat. And so I don't know which of those. The bagger had it easy because he's just up there. And like, but you
Right.
have to earn that job. You have to be here like for years to get that job. I had the worst job. I'm still not sure if the cellophane dude had it worse because he had to walk in a circle
Mm-hmm.
for 8 hours. Um, And then the worst part is that if you're not wearing a hairpiece or any type of do rag or anything over your head, as I wasn't because I was new and stupid and this was daily, this was a temp service job,
Mm-hmm.
the dust from the quickcrete is in the air like dust. And so it mixes with your sweat. And at the end of your shift, if you don't wipe that stuff out of your hair, you have little concrete naps that are just in your head. You can't pull them
Oh
out
my
because you're
gosh.
yanking your hair out by the roots. So I did that job for 3 days, and that was that. I was like, I can't do this no more. Like, I literally cannot fucking like no. Like the heat, everything about that was just the Columbia was a wild time because the comedy club that was there, they were open 6 nights a week, and they would book MCs 2 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in town for 2 weeks with nothing to do during the day. So I would just fucking go get a job. I would just go find work. And like I remember they were building a mega church and they were putting the spackle on the ceiling of the mega church, and the spackle fell down onto the concrete foundation of what would ultimately, be the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
They gave us 6-inch scrapers with a 6-inch wide blade, and told us to scrape the spackle off the floor so the floor could be smooth so that they could lay the carpet. Now, a real construction site, or a real construction company rather, would have put plastic down under where the spackling was being done so the spackling would fall into the plastic.
Right.
But, we dealing with, these some janky promoters. And so the floor was covered in spackle and the floor was uneven, so they couldn't lay the carpet. So me and another dude, and this is a mega church now, 6-inch blade. So me and one guy for 8 hours scraping spackling off of the floor. It took us 3 hours before we had enough sense to get some duct tape and tape the spackle, tape the scraper to the edge of a longer stick so we could have something where we could actually work upright. Because before that, we was on the floor like Forrest Gump and Bubba with the toothbrush. But that stuff is important. It builds character. Elbow grease, You know, I think everybody should work food service and you should work outdoors once in your life. You should do both of those. Those things, oh my God.
Yeah, you're taking me back to some janky jobs I had, which is no bueno. But here we
Those were the
are.
days.
You're not doing those jobs anymore, thank goodness. You have the podcast. So what's it like doing being part of the podcast universe now?
It's interesting. I've tried to consider there's like people, I don't know. It's interesting when you start podcasting because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like Peloton and vegans and dog owners where there's just there's an odd contingency that are really diehard. And yeah, and I'm like, I did morning radio for 10 years. So in my brain, this is just another way to talk to people. This isn't that
Mm-hmm.
different from anything else. I do enjoy, here's what I'll say. The podcast gives me an opportunity to connect with strangers again, which I haven't been able to do since terrestrial radio.
Okay.
Because that's why I wanted to do a call-in show because I wanted to meet people. I wanted to talk to people, just regular motherfuckers. Hey, what are you up to? Where do you work? Give me job tips. Where do you work? Oh, you're hiring? Tell me about the job. What's that job like? And really trying to like, screw down the nuts and bolts on who these people are,
Mm-hmm.
and why they do what they do. And when you look at employment, it's really not that different than a relationship or food. We all have things that we love and things that we hate in
Mm-hmm.
those particular interactions. And so employment's no different. So, when unemployment started peaking last year during COVID, when all the businesses started shutting down, I just thought that, well, this will be something fun to do for a quick minute. And then it just started rolling and rolling and rolling. And then the next thing I know, iHeart and Comedy Central come calling and go, you want to do your show over here with us? Like, fuck it. Why not? Yeah.
I mean, I think when you do those type of different jobs and you appreciate it. I because I love watching you on the Daily Show and I love your stand up because you just have a very honest perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like the preacher who who sinned, had 3-4 different wives, did some wild stuff, and could talk about it on the pulpit and say like how they came around. Like it's kind of I'm not comparing you to a preacher, but it's kind of that same time. Like you just telling the truth as is, how you see it, and you have the experience behind it. So that's why I really gravitate towards your comedy because it's hilarious to me. So kudos
Well,
for that,
thank
and
you.
thank you
I
very much.
appreciate that.
There's like a roundabout way, but I hope you got what I was trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So that is pretty much it. First off, last thing before we get out of here, what do you have to say to people who they're either experiencing that Kentucky moment or they're about to, because that's just how life is. There are the peaks and valleys and the ups and downs. What one word of advice do you have to say to somebody who's experiencing that? Or one
Remember why
sentence,
you
sorry.
started. Remember why you started, and that is your North Star. Your instincts are what got you this far, so continue to trust those instincts.
Boom, there it is. Where can everybody find, first off, your
Uh,
podcast and then social
uh,
media?
yeah, Roy's Job Fair is the podcast. And if you want to reach me, hit me online at Roy's Job Fair. Follow me over there. Come say what's up.
Okay, I know. I feel like I have to come. I had some bad jobs. I might have to call in and tell you about those ones because those are
Well, you
whew,
know what? Yes, yes,
whole situation.
yes,
But
please.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Um, I kind of just want to give a behind the scenes quick story for everybody. So I met Roy when I was at Politicon, and you took the time to talk to me because I was just this. I was doing some stuff for another network, and there are all these people crowding around, and you took the time to talk to me, and you also promised me an interview, and 4 years later, you made it happen. And I really,
Yes.
and this is 4 years later. I think you've had 2 stand-up specials, the day, like you're doing all this stuff. And like, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, like, I really appreciate, one, people who keep the words. And then two, like, you don't have to. And so I really appreciate you for doing that. And I just want people to know, like you, that dude, like, it's for
Well, I
real.
appreciate it, TK. I'm just trying to be a vessel of positivity. That is all.
There it is. Thank you so much. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk
All
soon.
right. Thank you. Bye.
Peaks and Valleys is produced by Josh Rodriguez and TKO Productions. Spoken word and voiceover is done by yours truly, Lem Gonzalez. Thank you for listening, and remember, after the darkness comes the dawn.